Hello, my name is Jackson Kilgore.
And I'm Jacob Cain.
And this is the NextUp Leaders Podcast.
Our guest today is Coach Grant Nichols.
My name's Jackson Kilgore.
I'm Jacob Cain.
And this is the NextUp Leaders Podcast.
All right, Mr. Nichols, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How y'all doing?
We're doing pretty good.
Pretty good. So, Mr. Nichols, what inspired you to get into agriculture and teaching?
So, when I was growing up, I lived on a farm, just like I do today. But my grandparents, my dad, they raised hogs. We had corn. They did cotton, and I've always had a love for agriculture. I think it's very important. I had some, that they say that, people that are successful all have one thing in common. And I'm certainly not saying that I am successful. I feel successful, but that they have stood on the backs of giants. And I certainly have had that in my career as an ag teacher, starting when I was in school. God rest his soul, Mr. Hugh Smith, he passed away not too long ago. He was my ag teacher. Mike Donaldson would follow him. And I worked with I've worked around and been around some really good ag teachers, and they inspired me. I guess I sort of had a blueprint, of this is how you're supposed to do it, and this is the way it's supposed to be done. And that's really sort of what motivated me to get into it.
Mm-hmm. So what advice would you give to a student who is considering a career in the agricultural and FFA, stuff like that?
So my advice is this, and I told my students this, agriculture has evolved and I'm talking about if you're actually talking about hands-on growing, raising, whatever. I think agriculture has evolved into, you have big farms, big time farmers. I'm not talking about 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 acres. I'm talking about, those guys 1,000 acres and above. In my mind, I consider that, big time farming. And then you have what I call niche farming, like people that raise strawberries or have they do beef, custom beef and things like that, or they sell sheep or goats or whatever. I think the thing is you need to find your niche, no matter what it is, and when people go into those things, everybody wants to, succeed. I mean, that's but I think the big thing is do what you can do, be happy with what you're doing, and if you can make a living and you're happy, I mean, in my mind, you're a pretty successful. And I think that's the thing now, as far as, if you want to teach ag or you want to go into a field related to farming, there's a lot of things out there, the USDA, obviously ag teachers, there's things in forestry. There are a lot of different spokes in the wheel, so to speak, that you can kind of branch off into. I think that's one of the biggest things that people need to do. It's kind of like what you guys are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
I don't know how much of this is in your comfort zone or not, but I mean, you stepped out. I mean, you boys may become,
the next Joe Rogan.
Celebs, and, the redneck revival or whatever, whatever you want to call it. But I'm just saying, you know, I think it doesn't do. I just believe that, you know, there is a facet of agriculture. Everybody's not going to be a farmer, but everybody depends on agriculture. So I think that's, you know, I think there are a lot of opportunities. If you want to get involved and be a part of it, you can.
Yeah. So, like, what would you say, like, some of the benefits of, like, joining FFA?
So, you know, obviously, FFA, without a doubt, it's one of the premier organizations that students have an opportunity to be a part of. You look at the leadership opportunities, the career building opportunities, and something that I think is, you know, like when we go to district, you know, we were fortunate at Oakman that, you know, we got to participate every year. We got to go to district every year that I was, you know, at Oakman. And, you know, when you sit in there with 1,200 to 1,400 people, or you go to state convention and there's 14 or 15, 1,600 people, you know, man, that's a network. I think the network, is something today that, you know, is important to have. You know, I know a guy that knows a guy. Or, I mean, really and truly, I think that is, not to mention, I know a guy that knows a guy, but to have people that have the same interest as you, you know, is pretty, I mean, that's a big thing to have. You know, we all have friends and all that stuff, but I just think that, you know, being in FFA, and I've said this many times that, you know, I would have employers to call me because students would put that down. And I can think of one in particular, and the guy would say, well, they're in FFA, you know, and he would call me and say, hey, what about this guy? I'd say, they good. How about this girl? They good, you know. Mm-hmm. That's all I need to hear. He'd hire them on the spot. Yeah. So I think stuff like that, I think that's, and if you're looking for something that separates you from other people, I think FFA, FBLA, you know, anything like that, I think those clubs separate people. If two of you were close and you've got FFA and they don't, you know, you never know. That's the deciding factor. That's why you got a job or a position.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, like, what do you think some of the leadership skills, like, that FFA members should, like, strive to develop?
So, you know, one is, and I don't know if this is, you buy the book, but getting along with people. You know, mm-hmm. A lot of people, I think people's skills are important. You know, we live in a world today where the cell phone dominates. I mean, you know, Instagram, TikTok, I mean, there's people that make a living doing that sort of thing, and I'm not knocking it or anything, but I'm just saying, but just one-on-one contact. And I'll use this example. If you've ever been to the auto parts store,
yeah,
the auto parts store, there ain't no speedy checkout at the auto parts. I mean, you got an app to go to McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, a mobile app. Napa doesn't have a mobile app, to my knowledge. You know, you've got to be able to go in there and talk to people. There will always be jobs where those people skills are important. Another thing that really two more things. Work ethic. You may not be the smartest, you may not be, you know, whatever, but if you work, you're not going to starve to death in life. And I think, to me, work ethic carries a lot. And lastly, I think another thing is, you know, flexibility. Sometimes people, and I'm guilty of this, you kind of get set in your ways and you're rigid. And I think, flexibility to be able to adapt to situations. My grandmother used to say, if somebody gives you a lemon, you got to put sugar and water and get lemonade. You got to be able to take a bad situation and make the best out of it as you can. And I think those are things, the teamwork concept in FFA, I think that's really important.
Yeah. So you were saying something about work ethic. How do you develop a strong work ethic?
Well, everybody probably has a work ethic story. How do you get it? What do you do? I think I've always believed this. I think there are little things that you do. Little things make big things. Like probably one thing that comes to mind, taking pride in what you do. How you present yourself, how you carry yourself. Do you just get by, or do you do? The best you can do is the best you can do, and if you do all you can do, then that's all you can do. Your best is your best, and if it's not good enough today, you just tip your hat and you just got to go on. But I think little bitty things, being punctual, being and not being afraid. I had an uncle. He passed away several years ago, but he had a saying, and I always kind of thought it's right. A lot of people don't want to do things because they think they're going to screw up and somebody's going to yell at them, and that's probably true. I'm guilty of that myself, but the person that never makes a mistake never does anything. So you kind of got to, smash your thumb a few times or, do something wrong. And I think you learn from that. And I think people that learn from that, those are things that help develop work ethic. And then obviously, work, doing it.
Yeah. So you was talking about how you actually have to do it, help with your work ethic. What other benefits do you think are participating in hands-on activities?
Everybody learns differently, and that's a proven fact. And we, as teachers, you get taught, everybody learns differently. And I've sort of always adopted, if you see it, hear it, read it, write it, do it. You kind of, if you get some of those things, then you kind of that's sort of how you do it. Some people, I'm like this, and I don't know. My wife would tell you, I don't read the directions. I don't. I look at the picture. If I look at the picture, I can put it together, or I can reason out how it goes together or how it works or something like that. And and I'm not saying that's good, because it's probably not. I'd save myself a lot of time if I just read directions. But I'm just saying, having the ability to do that, that's a pretty good life skill.
Yeah. So how would you, what advice would you give students who are facing challenges, whether that be at home, school, or work?
Okay. I'll say this. I think the most important thing that any individual can do is to have a personal relationship with Jesus. I think faith is very important. I think that's, I just think that's, you put your put your trust, put your faith in the Lord, and I think that's important. You have to understand too that, just like that lemonade story, sometimes, you're at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're at the wrong place at the right time. You kind of got to look at it the glass half empty, half full kind of thing, But I just think if you just put your head down, have faith in God. Have faith in God first. Put your head down and go to work. You, more times than not, the average bear, so to speak, can overcome a lot of adversity. And one of the things that I would say is look at what's causing your adversity. Sometimes my granny used to say, they can't help it, they can't get out of the way to help themselves. It might not be somebody else, it might be you. Maybe you're the reason, whatever. That's not always the case, but I just think that you need to be able to look at yourself. Do I need to make a change? And if you do, then you need to change. But I mean, everybody's situation is different, and they always say you don't know what somebody's going through till you've walked a mile in their shoes. Well, that's true, but everybody's shoes don't fit. So,
So, like, what career opportunities do you think there's, like, around here that's, like, good for, like, a teenager when, like, starts their career? Like, I know one, the Cordova City Work Program. I worked it last summer. I plan on doing it this summer. One of the best opportunities, I say, a person that goes to Cordova, because, like, they'll work around your football schedule. I highly recommend it, and I think every city should have one.
I mean, first of all, I would say this. I would say you need to, just what you just said. Like if you're going to play football or if you're going to be in the band, those are two, obviously, that when school starts and not that other things don't take up a lot of time, but band and football take up a lot of time. I mean, they do. And I think that, that what a person needs to look at, if you're getting experience, I want to look at what do I want out of the experience. Like, and I'm not knocking anybody that works there. I'll use Jack's or McDonald's or fast food. I couldn't work at fast food. I couldn't, but that doesn't mean you can't. You may thrive in that environment. I don't know that I could. I've never tried it. I don't knock it till you try it kind of thing, but I'm not sure. I've never worked in that. So I think it's important to work in something that you think you would like and that you can be successful. And I'd be hypocritical if I didn't say, money's important, guys. Yeah. I'll give you $2 to flip burgers, or I'll give you $10 to weed eat. $10 buy a lot of water, but if you don't like to weed eat and you like to flip burgers and it works for what you can do, then that's what you need to do. But going back to what you said, like, I think those type things like here in Cordova, where you have the city that employs, those. I know, I think Park and Rec in Jasper does. Obviously, there are other, lawn care businesses. That's one that's, they kind of look for those. I mean, there are probably other things, and hey, who's to say that you don't start your own business, Yeah. I mean, like, I have, but like, I would just, a shameless plug kind of hint thing. Are you good at cleaning up cars? because I see people on like Facebook and stuff all the time. Hey, I need somebody to clean my car up, and if you work 2 hours and it costs $60, well, that's $30 an hour. I mean, that's pretty good money.
Yeah.
But anyway, and things like that. I mean, where you're working for yourself or you're working, for somebody. But those are, like I said, those are a couple.
Yeah. And I feel like at this point in our lives, it's the easiest that it's going to be to get a job, and it's really the time for us to get experience and kind of adapt to how being in a workplace is going to be.
I'll tell you a quick story. So when I was in college, I go to of course I'm old as dirt, but when I started college, we were on quarters. Now they're on semesters now. So a quarter, you would go, and you would have a break. And so I had, we would get out like right after Thanksgiving, and you might not go back till second or third week of January, or you might get out, maybe the 1st of December, and, you'd have the holidays. So, and I'm about 22, 23, 24, probably maybe 23, 24. And so I go to work. I work while we're out of school.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the wintertime. And so I had a friend of mine, and he said, man, I think you can get a job at the grocery store. Like, during the holidays, they hire extra people, to help put stuff out, and cashiers, they run more lines and all that stuff. And you're older, you probably can get a job. So, yeah, I did. So I go to the grocery store, and I get a job at the grocery store, and it's kind of funny. So I'm like, say, 23, 24, and I really can't remember, but my boss was 16. It was kind of funny, but I mean, when I'm not making like an age joke, but I'm just saying, I liked it. I enjoyed that,
Yeah.
it was pretty good. It was different, but it was a pretty good experience. And if you haven't fronted, you'd have to work at a grocery store to know what I'm talking about. But fronting is where you pull all the cans, you turn them all the same way, and you pull them all the way to the front of the shelf. That way, when you're reaching in, if you got short arms, you can't reach the back. If you haven't fronted an entire grocery store, you probably haven't lived in life, because that's a lot of cans. But anyway.
How do you think, as an ag teacher, you have shaped your students' future and stuff like that?
One thing we tried to do, at Oatman was this, and I use Oatman, and I was, for a short time, I filled in for Mr. McCullough, who was the ag teacher at Curry, and I was his part-time replacement when he became the director at the Center of Technology. But one thing that I've tried to do is to take my students, my kids, and let them experience other things. Like we've been to Auburn. We kind of prided ourselves every year, like we're going to take a field trip, and like we've been, in the spring, we had a field trip day for juniors, and we called it Ag Ed Day. And we would go to businesses that were ag related, and I would take my students, and we learned, we went to the co-op, and they had the fish guys, that bring the fish where you can buy the fish.
Yeah.
And we went there, and we learned about that and how much, what all went into that. And we went to the cow sale, and we went to one of our favorite trips over at Fayette, Alabama Sunshine. That's a homegrown company, and they make the hot sauce, and all that stuff. And, if you ain't smelled some ghost pepper cooking, gee Louise, I mean, but just, I think just taking my kids and letting them experience different things is important. Probably, one thing that we did, and it wasn't necessarily unique to us because everybody has some type of banquet or something, but at Oatman, we have a fish fry, or we had a fish fry. And we had people that would give us fish and all this stuff, and we'd buy fish, and we'd have a fish fry. And that was probably, my kids got to experience, a hands-on thing and stuff like that. And I just think that, those were some of the things that probably shaped our program and hopefully shaped, made an impact on their lives.
Yeah. So what do you think, like, students in a career tech program, like, what do you think they could do to get, like, the most out of it?
I think the biggest thing, people get scared. Mm-hmm. That they're not going to be good at it. Somebody's going to laugh at them, and all that. I just think, you kind of got to go into it, my dad, and he used to say this all the time, and it's kind of funny, and it's true, like the lawnmower's tore up. Well, what are you going to do? Screw it up worse? Like go do it. Like if it wasn't working, I mean, what's worse than not working? Like do what you do, and I think just kind of, don't get hurt at what you do, but like sometimes you just got to let it rip. You just gotta kind of go do it. And I think just trust in yourself, believe in what you do. Have a plan, execute your plan. See your plan through. I just think that's what you want to do. If you want to be an electrician, ain't but one thing keeping you. I heard, and I'll say this real quick, but like, I want to be an electrician. Okay. Do you like electricity? No, I'm scared to death of it. Okay, well then you may not. There's a difference between being leery of it, like, hey, those two wires are hot. If I touch them, I'm going to get fried. I don't want to touch it. Well, you're probably not going to be a real good electrician,
Yeah.
So, like, if you had to give your current students, like, the best advice about their careers, like, what would it be?
That's a good question.
Like, and it doesn't have to be about careers. It can really just be anything.
It's like about
any
life.
piece of advice.
I'll say this. Sometimes we get too focused on. We come up with this idea. Hey, I want to be a blank, okay? Mm-hmm. And we're working towards it, and then when we become or we get there or whatever, we don't like it. Well, I'm just stuck, Nah, don't be afraid to put the turn signal on. Don't be afraid to back up, Like, don't make a habit of it, but, you know what you want to do.
Yeah.
You may not know it right now. It might be 5 years from now. A lot of people get out of things. I've known people personally in teaching. All they ever wanted to do was be a teacher, be a teacher, be a teacher. They taught 3, 4, 5 years. Guess what they did? Got out. Hey, this ain't for me. I think, one, you need to be smart enough to realize this ain't for me. Mm-hmm. And 2, you need to be dedicated enough to go find what it is you want to do. And if you do those things, keep the good Lord first, you'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, our closing segment. Well, we were trying to think of something. Okay. We were trying to think of something to do that would be a little bit different than all just asking questions.
And your wife
So-
mentioned that you love cheese, so.
She did. So, I'm going to pull up my phone here. And so, we're going to give you 30 seconds. And we're going to see how many types of cheeses you can name.
Me and her had a bet on this, so. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we're going. I plan to do it to everybody that's on. We're going to just keep y'all on a little leaderboard and see who gets the most.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Mhm.
All right, go.
Cheddar, American, Colby Jack, Gouda, pepper jack, cream cheese. How about Monterey? How about queso? How about
Time.
Tom.
I was gonna
So
say
you got
Swiss.
8.
8.
Blue cheese.
8.
Blue cheese, yeah.
She bet me $10 that you would say
Quiche.
Yeah. I do like blue cheese.
that. Well, this
Have you
was,
ever had quiche?
I have had quiche when I was in. So when I went to school, at a point in time, girls had to take ag for one semester. Boys had to take home ec for a semester.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and then you would swap back.
Mhm.
Okay, and you would get in your gender, whatever.
Mhm.
Anyway, and so yes, I actually, my home ec teacher, Miss Mitzi Smallwood, she made us make quiche.
Mm.
So yeah, I've made it. I'm not a real big quiche guy.
Really?
I'm more of a biscuit and gravy kind of guy.
Yeah, my grandpa has told me stories. He had to take sewing
Yeah.
as a class.
My mother actually has my apron. I have an apron's got big old chicken on it, you know. So yeah.
Well, this was the NextUp Leaders Podcast. This is Mr. Grant Nichols. Thank you for coming.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
All right.